Chapter 10. Health. By perceiving thy inner perfection, thou attainest the vigorous health, for thy body is but a projection of thy view of the indwelling self. The origin of disease. Health and well-being are the natural states of every form of life, for all things are rooted in universal subconscious mind, which is perfect. Every living thing is an idea held in universal mind, made manifest in space and time, gifted with consciousness which seeks ever to know more about itself. There is only one intelligence, one mind in all creation, and all things are made from it. According as each thing realizes the perfection in which it is rooted, it attains to perfection itself. Thus, physical health proceeds from mental peace, and disease and corruption proceed from mental confusion. Disease is a product of the confusion attendant upon growing self-consciousness. So it is that man, the most intelligent of all forms of life, falls constant prey to disease and illness, while the lower forms of life exist in physical perfection. Unburdened by mental confusion, the lower we go on the scale of life, the scarcer become the evidences of disease until at last we are forced to the conclusion that disease is a product of mental development, most certainly a product of evolving consciousness. Evolving consciousness carries with it an increasing number of conflicts, which project themselves into universal mind, which manifests them physically in the form of disease and corruption of the body. Man, who has come to full-scale self-consciousness, but has not as yet evolved the greater consciousness of immortal self, sees himself as an insignificant dot in a gigantic universe where he has not ordered his existence and cannot stay his death. His highly developed little ego cuts him off from the roots of his being, and he knows fear and futility and hate and bitterness, all of which set up conflicts between his emotions and his mind, project into universal intelligence, cast his concept of himself from perfection, and return to him as gallstones, kidney stones, ulcers, high blood pressure, hardening of the arteries, cancer, leprosy, deafness, and so on, ad infinitum. Psychology and psychiatry have unmasked this chain of cause and effect so clearly that medical science, devised to treat disease as a physical thing only, now freely admits that 80% of all disease is of mental origin. It will not be much longer before this admission is enlarged to 100% where it should be. A truth cannot be partly right, and it is obvious that all things have their origin in something greater than the physical world around us. The bacterial concept of disease is satisfactory for the chain of effects that exist on the physical plane. But why do such bacteria enter one body and not another? And why are they harmless in some bodies and yet deadly in others? Indeed, why do they exist at all? Any man who considers the origin of anything must come at last to the invisible but very apparent intelligence from which all things have sprung, and concede it to be the first cause. Since this intelligence would scarcely be intelligent at all if its normal procedure were to attack itself, such as in microbes attacking the human body, that it must be conceded that it is creating disease in response to something. That something is a conception, formed by the conscious mind and projected into universal subconscious mind, whence it manifests in the physical world. The power that heals. It is a rare person who consciously desires to be sick, though it is certainly true that a few unhappy people have so completely cut themselves off from the spiritual unity of life that nothing further appeals to them than this form of slow suicide. The vast majority of people fall prey to disease through negative thinking habits and through coping mechanisms established in answer to buried pain remembrances or prompters. A person who is chronically ill has a subconscious desire to be sick, though to confront him with such a thesis would be to inspire the most vehement denial. And even those of us who are sick only occasionally become so because it is a way of coping with the situation that confronts us. Since we do not know ourselves or even who we are, we do not understand the dynamically creative energy in which we live, nor do we understand our subconscious desires, nor do we understand that each of these desires is delivered to us in reality. So it is that all disease, all warping of the body from its natural physical perfection, comes because a person holds subconscious feelings of hate, bitterness, resentment, envy, jealousy, greed, self-pity, maliciousness, or any number of the countless abortions that corrupt the natural expression of the universe. Love. If a man does not love, he hates, or projects one of hate's deformed brothers, for love is the power of universal mind and flows through each person who lives, whether he uses it positively or negatively. If he uses it negatively, as in hate, it is a corrupting power, aimed at evil, and it weakens and decays and withers the body. Instead of the power for life, it becomes the power for death. Once again, we see that the commands of the universe are love or suffer, love or die. Love is the power that heals. Love banishes confusion, roots out the prompters, brings peace of mind, bars the door to negative thinking, reveals the indwelling perfection of the human soul, not the love of man for woman, or one person for another, but the love of man for God, and the love of God for man, which is complete in man when he knows his love for God. Body is rooted in spirit. Psychiatry is now only a skip and a jump away from being able to put its finger on the various negative emotions that bring on specific diseases. The day is not too far distant when medical textbooks shall list after hate, bitterness, frustration, repression, envy, and loneliness the resultant physical debilities. And mankind will guard its emotions with the same care it now bestows on its physical well-being, pills and potions being replaced by healthy habits of thought. Writes Edward Carpenter, every organ and center of the body is the seat of some great emotion, which in its proper activity and due proportion is truly divine. Body is rooted in pure spirit and universal subconscious mind, which is perfect. Body may be cast from perfection only by concepts held in conscious mind, which project into the subconscious and are returned as physical ailments. We do not cause our hearts to beat, nor do we direct the flow of blood to our various organs, nor the acids of the stomach to perform the miracle of digestion, nor the intestines and the kidneys to go about the process of eliminating waste matter. The dynamic source from which our bodies have sprung has inculcated in them these reflexive actions. The functions of a body represent the movement and concept of intelligence. And when we get our fears and negative desires out of the way, our bodies function perfectly. But every concept we hold of lack, limitation, acquisitiveness, repression, and despair performs its restrictive influence on our bodies so that the blood does not circulate freely. The digestion does not assimilate properly. Elimination is poor. Congestion develops. Strange growths appear and represent the distortion of our thinking. Thus, our self-awareness, with its attendant doubts and fears and frustrations, limits the condition of our health and our lives. We must let go our little egos, take onto ourselves the God consciousness, which is our true being. Then body becomes perfect, for we have become one with that which is perfect itself. Body is only a manifestation of God's knowledge of Himself. It is an idea held in universal subconscious mind, an evolving idea which constantly changes. All about us we see the cycle of life's expression: seed, bud, bloom, decay, the giving way to new life. Form must change as knowledge and ideation advances. Thus body is that which changes, that which manifests idea, form within the formless, a complete and perfect expression of an idea held in universal subconscious mind, destined to express the idea and give way to a more perfect idea. Birth and death, infancy, youth, middle age, old age, are all absolute essentials in the progress of evolution by which God seeks to know Himself, and death will not be stayed until the journey is complete, for to stop death would be to stop the progress of evolution. Spirit is perfect. Jesus was the first great healer because He saw that body and mind were one, and He knew that body was only a visible result of an invisible cause. So highly developed was His consciousness that He perceived the spiritual perfection in which every living thing is rooted, and He realized that disease could be healed by revealing to an afflicted person the perfection from which he had come. When He met the leper, lame, halt, or blind, He knew at once that some buried pain remembrance within the mind of the unfortunate man had manifested itself in the man's physical condition. Jesus knew that he and the afflicted man were using the same mind, the universal subconscious mind, the Father. So close was His unity with this mind that He was able to effect instantaneous healing by removing His patient's negative prompters. "Dost thou believe?" He asked, thus removing the concept of limitation from his patient's conscious mind. "Lord, I believe," his patient answered, and receptivity was established. "Thy sins be forgiven thee," said Jesus. "Take up thy bed and walk." The healing was effected. When Jesus banished sins, He was not erasing from a ledger held in some ethereal realm by a God who kept records for a judgment day when He would reward the do-gooder and punish the evildoer. The sins that Jesus spoke of were the buried prompters of the subconscious that were manifesting themselves as bodily ailments. His forgiveness of them was simply assurance to His patient that as soon as such buried guilts and hostilities and rejections were forgotten, he would be healed. What Jesus was saying was, the real you is great and good and perfect. Acknowledge this perfection, and your body will become perfect also. There is no such thing as an imperfect body, for body is always a perfect manifestation of an idea. There are only imperfect ideas. They are imperfect because they are in air, and they may be changed by simply accepting the idea of change. A man who has stifled his divinity in the belief that physical things are first causes is incapable of healing himself until he has changed his belief. If his joints are stiff and his digestion poor, he spends a good portion of each day acknowledging the fact that his joints are stiff and his digestion poor, and he himself is thrusting his body into these very conditions by his concept. He is deluded into believing that he thinks these things because he has stiff joints and poor digestion, and cannot see that he has stiff joints and poor digestion because he thinks them. Place him under deep hypnosis and assure him that he can get about like an athlete and has the digestion of a lumberjack, and after he is awakened his afflictions will have flown. Alas, they will not be gone permanently, for patterns of negative thinking are his still and will shortly bring back his poor condition. But the marvelous illustration will not be denied. The intelligence that inhabits a man's body will become anything that is projected into it. It will make a healthy body if health is projected, and it will make a sickly body if limitation or hate or bitterness is projected. Thus, a healthy body is always a result of a healthy mind, and a sickly body is always the result of a blocked and unhappy mind. If we could heal our bodies, we must first heal our minds with love, with recognition of our true being, with meditation at the center of consciousness. Let go of ego. Worry and tension, guilt and hostility, resentment and vanity lay the foundations for all of our physical afflictions. They spring like growths from our overdeveloped little egos, which are forever being hurt and frustrated in a world which we set out to beat instead of cooperate with. Victory seems to be all we can think of. We have to outshine somebody, get the better of someone, make more money, be better looking, wear better clothes. How transient such victories are, and how unrewarding. Find a champion and you will see behind him the shadow of a man who will replace him. There is no victory for the hounded little ego, for it is nothing by itself, and it cannot see the larger dimensions of the being in which it is rooted. So it is hurt and sad and lonely and frustrated, and is forever turning upon itself and rending itself, as if by the self-affliction of pain it confirms the poor opinion it has of life. Turn to the gigantic self that dwells within, and you will cease to be concerned with the pains of your ego, which will immerse itself in an untroubled sea and bother you no more. Some of your hurts you have cured, and the sharpest you still have survived. But what torments of grief you endured for evils which never arrived. Emerson. The entire miracle of existence and creation lies at our fingertips. Yet most of us fill the pathways of our lives with wails of fear for what lies around the corner. We bemoan past mistakes, or dwell forever on the saddest words of tongue or pen. It might have been. Each day is a new birth, unlimited with miraculous possibilities for each man who lives. No matter what your age, situation, clime, or time, you need only awaken to know with Khalil Gibran that which sings and contemplates in you is still dwelling within the bounds of that first moment which scattered the stars into space. Finding a motivating purpose. Idea is a complete thing, aimed at a purpose, and the body made manifest from such an idea is also a complete thing aimed at a purpose. It is this purpose which holds together the many interrelated functions of the body, and when purpose disappears from our lives, our bodies disintegrate, even as the idea which manifested them is disintegrating. We often are witness to the vigorous businessman who, at a mature age, decides to retire to a life of leisure. Seldom has he embarked many months upon this life before all sorts of symptoms of bad health begin to overtake him. A motivating purpose is absolutely essential to good health, for the organs and functions of the body respond to the goal set in mind. When the goal is removed, sluggishness and irresponsibility overtake the body, and it decays and breaks down. No body can be whole and vigorous unless the mind that inhabits it is whole and vigorous. For the ideas we hold in mind are made visible through our bodies and the circumstances that surround us. The first step to health is always the creation of interest and enthusiasm on the plane of mind. Aspiring and dynamic thoughts make vigorous bodies, and we must think health in order to be healthy. Exercise is a case in point. Our physical culturist would have us believe that running, bending, squatting, lifting, and flailing the arms will bring health, and they point with pardonable pride to various outstanding physical specimens as examples of what comes from exercise. But once again, we are witness to materialists who point to results and never causes. For the well-conditioned body is not a direct result of exercise, but only a secondary result. True cause exists in the mind, as always, and a body is conditioned because of mental purpose, which causes purposeful exercise, which results in a vigorous body. Exercise and health. Some of the healthiest people of our age get little more exercise than walking from bed to dinner table, and many of our shortest-lived people are athletes. It becomes increasingly obvious that exercise alone produces neither health nor longevity, yet the evidence is all about us that men of great purpose live to ripe old age, so that it becomes an inescapable fact that interest and desire and aspiration are mental conditions that are always found in those who are healthy and vigorous. Our materialists may argue that such people have interest and desire and aspiration because they are healthy, but many a healthy man has been led into illness when his interest and joy in life waned, and many a sick man has been led back to vigor and health simply through developing a consuming interest and purpose. All things proceed from mind, which is always first cause. Physical vigor is the result of vigorous thoughts, and physical weakness is the result of confusion. Therefore, a man who accepts the perfection and power of the indwelling self will find such perfection and power mirrored in his body. Health comes from within and never from outside. By all means, take exercise if it is fun, but there is no point in taking it if it is distasteful. Exercise merely conditions the body for more exercise. If you lift a 100-pound weight 10 times every day, eventually you will be able to lift it 20 times every day, but the lifting of the weight will not prevent your arteries from hardening, your nerves from fraying, or your digestion from going awry. A man may as simply attain health through wielding a pencil with the purpose in mind of completing a book as he may through running the measured mile each day. In fact, more easily, if it gives him more pleasure to write the book than it does to run the mile. Our bodies are always perfect instruments of our thoughts, and perfect health may be ours whether we are athletes, professors, lumberjacks, clerks, or housewives, if our thinking is clear with purpose and our hearts are free to love. Exercise makes not the slightest difference. Physical strength and endurance may be increased through exercise, but lasting health is as much a prerogative of the sedentary life as the athletic life. Pain is a signpost. The spiritual unrest of the world is evidenced by increasing orgies of overeating, overdrinking, overworking, overplaying, and undersleeping. We undertake such a chain of neurotic activity as an escape from the gnawing doubts and fears and frustrations that lay at the crux of our subconscious. Abuses of the body are always results of confusions in the mind, so that a subconscious sense of insecurity may lead a person into eating far too much, or a sense of being unloved may turn a person to alcohol. We sometimes play too hard, seeking to forget the issues of life and death by burying our heads in the sand like ostriches. We often work too hard, seeking to amass a mountain of material gain to provide for our security. But it stays not death, and we cannot take it with us when the transition comes. We seek constantly for the pleasures of the senses, and by surfeiting ourselves, we dull the mystical creativeness of our true being. And when our bodies grow old and physical sensation wanes, the pygmy of our undeveloped soul plagues us with gnawing doubts and uncertainties. Truly, we cannot be whole men, either spiritually or physically, until we have recognized that the roots of our being rest in eternity. We learn slowly, mostly by pain, and each of our gains in knowledge and awareness is hard-won. Pain is that which visits us when we are in error, and through suffering we are turned back to the path of truth, writes Khalil Gibran. Much of your pain is self-chosen. It is the bitter potion by which the physician within you heals your sick self. Therefore, trust the physician and drink his remedy in silence and tranquility. Until we have learned the great lesson that pain is merely a signpost indicating that we have wandered off the track of truth, we shall continue to fight it and struggle with it, to lend reality to it and thus bring more of it into our experience. Once we have come far enough to realize that all pain, physical, mental, and emotional, proceeds from errors in thinking, we are well on the way to filling our lives with vigor, abundance, and joy, and have come a great step toward unity of consciousness with the universal subconscious mind. The ordinary man learns by his own mistakes. The wise man learns by the mistakes of others. Overindulgence in physical things marks an imbalance of the emotions. Fear, hate, and insecurity rest in the subconscious of every person who flees his demon down the murky roads of alcoholism, overeating, or frenetic searches for pleasure and acquisition. Moderation attends all things to him who has been introduced to the center of consciousness. No violent emotions constrict his soul, for he is secure in the consciousness of God. No uncertainties gnaw at the foundations of his being, for they rest in eternity. Confusion has no place in his mind because he sees the goal of all life, becomes one with it, takes it into himself as his own purpose. Should disease or illness become manifest in his body, he turns his gaze within, to the perfection and wonder of his true being, and his body is made whole. And since he kept his mind on one sole aim, nor ever touched fierce wine, nor tasted flesh, nor owned a sensual wish, to him the wall, that sounders, ghost, and shadow-casting men, became a crystal, and he saw them throw it, and heard their voices talk behind the wall, and learned their elemental secrets, powers, and forces. Alfred Tennyson. Disease is never incurable. An infinite law is at work in the universe. It is the law of ideas become things. Since this law is the movement of universal mind, it has absolutely no limitation. Therefore, there is no such thing as an incurable disease. A law must work all the time in order to be a law, and the law that governs the intelligence in which we are rooted is the foundation of all things. Disease itself springs from an idea impregnated upon universal mind and will be banished when the idea is banished. Whatever disease science has been unable to find a cure for is not incurable. Something causes it. That something may be discovered and removed. Both medical science and psychiatry are learning that the root of all things exists in mind, springs from idea. An idea can be changed. Since there is no limit to idea and to the inexhaustible power of universal subconscious mind, there absolutely cannot be any such thing as an incurable disease. We must realize that the universe always turns out to be exactly what we think it to be, even as do our bodies. As we reach higher levels of consciousness, we take onto ourselves more perfect ideas, casting off the shackles of limitation, becoming aware that all things are possible. The moment we say something is impossible, we make it impossible for God to manifest it through us. And another man, with a greater vision and a greater faith, will bring it forth, for he will allow God to work through him. None of us has the right to say a thing is impossible, unless he is foolish enough to place limitations on God. perfect spirit is within us, willing to manifest perfect health for us if we but call upon it with faith. All disease may be healed by mental and spiritual treatment, by expanding consciousness to encompass universal self. Mental healing. Each person who suffers from ill health has usually fallen victim to a specific ailment. This specific ailment is the result of some obstruction in mind, some false idea, some erroneous conception. When we heal the body by mental and spiritual treatment, we do not treat the body, we treat the mind. This is very important. One cannot get rid of result without first getting rid of cause. Cause is always in the mind. Bodily ailments are the result. A lifetime of study would be unlikely to review the specific mental disturbances that cause each disease. But no table of mental and emotional disturbances with resultant physical debilities is needed to successfully conduct mental healing. All things spring from a perfect source, and we need only contact this source and allow it to manifest its perfection through our bodies. Said the great healer, "Be thou perfect, even as thy Father in heaven is perfect." In so saying, he pointed the way to the healing of all disease. Recognize your spiritual perfection. There is nothing in universal subconscious mind that desires our bodies to be warped away from the purposeful functioning for which they were intended. It is our conception of ourselves that visits disease upon us. And when we have conceived ourselves to be spiritually perfect, we become physically perfect. The real you is not your body. Your body is but an infinitesimal extension in time and space. The real you is mental and spiritual, free of the confines of space and time, limitless in power, and the capacity to understand and create. When you have recognized your true spiritual self, you have become identified with the immortal self, and disease cannot exist in your body, for there is no limitation in universal subconscious mind. Therefore, all disease may be treated as one disease, which is not disease at all, but simply limited thinking, errors projected into universal subconscious mind. We treat disease by refusing to accept it as having any true existence, by affirming the spiritual perfection in which we are rooted. Perfect love casteth out fear, and perfect faith cast out physical imperfection. Yet rare is the man who has perfect love, or perfect understanding, or even perfect faith. We are all neophytes on the great adventure of expanding consciousness, and by the very nature of this adventure, we are unable to go beyond our understanding. We stand at the crossroads, peering into the infinite reaches of space and time, exclaiming yet over one grain of sand on the gigantic beach of existence. But the veil is rent and light pours through with great revelation that mind and spirit are immortal and infinite and are always first cause of everything. If eons of time are yet to elapse before man completes his journey to a oneness with God, what does it matter? We are all part of the one mind and truly exist in a place where space and time are nothing. We may call upon universal subconscious mind with the understanding that now is in us. And the great Creator will respond by creating for us the image of our understanding. If we can find it in ourselves to accept spiritual perfection, universal mind will manifest this perfection in our bodies. Thus, the basis of spiritual and mental healing is affirmation. We deny nothing, waste no time dwelling on that which we do not desire. Our moments of consciousness are directed inward, at our spiritual selves, and are aimed at perceiving the perfection that gives us consciousness. What we see is returned to us, awareness of the center of consciousness, perception of the kingdom of heaven brings health. We cannot go beyond understanding. The objection that is usually raised against mental healing is that nobody seems able to set a broken bone mentally, so the whole aspect of mental healing is an error. It is not impossible, mentally, to set a broken bone. The fact that it has not been done simply means that we have not yet arrived at sufficient spiritual understanding. Lacking the understanding, we call a surgeon, which is as it should be. Nor do we have enough understanding to heal a ruptured appendix or dissolve a critical case of cancer. So again, we call upon the surgeon. Yet these things and all others of the so-called incurable diseases are possible of mental healing, and the day will arrive when evolution will have brought man's consciousness and understanding to the point where disease will be banished from the face of the earth. Another argument often used against mental healing is advanced by the school of materialists who see life as species preying on species and survival of the fittest. Their theory is that all organisms by their very natures must feed upon each other, that microbes must feed upon the human body. Thus, life is disease itself. This hopeless outlook on the miracle of creation keeps God embedded in the slime of the amoeba, sees nothing but a screaming insanity in life, and projects a tooth and fang existence for even the most enlightened of men. Evolution is the process of individualized consciousness expanding in search of God. The first result of individualized existence is the struggle to maintain life, with its natural outcome of survival of the fittest. The second result is consciousness of self, the identification of one self with another, and the birth of love and cooperation, as opposed to competition and preying on the weaker. The third result is the expansion of the consciousness of self to encompass the consciousness of universal subconscious mind, and it is this step that mankind is preparing to take now. Once it is fully taken, men will see through the illusions of space and time and perceive that material things are but tiny extensions of a far greater reality that has its roots in infinity. Such a consciousness orders the universe, for the universe turns out to be exactly what it perceives. Microbes, which have their roots in universal mind, may be banished by banishing the conception. "Hold out thy hand," said Jesus to the man with withered limb. The man did. Jesus saw a whole hand. The same became whole. Perceiving the truth. It is sometimes difficult for us to believe that a man who lived 2,000 years ago in the rude agrarian life of primitive Palestine could attain the universal consciousness for which mankind seeks so desperately in this so-called enlightened age. Yet there can be no doubt that the veil was lifted for Jesus. Every word he spoke, every action he undertook, is fraught with his knowledge of universal consciousness. By parable, indeed, he sought to convey the mighty truth which he held in the palm of his hand. But he spoke to a political-minded people engaged in revolutionary activity, unready for his spiritual perceptions. Only the enlightened power of Jesus has preserved his dialogues for us to marvel at today. He had achieved unity with universal subconscious mind. When he looked at a withered hand and perceived it to be whole, the hand became whole. Whatever is perceived by universal subconscious mind becomes a physical manifestation, and it is always conscious mind that forwards the perception to universal subconscious mind. Though our consciousness does not attain to that of Jesus, we may approach his healing power through faith in our spiritual perfection and an abiding sense of love. Disease is a negative thought force, is false, is therefore an illusion of the mind. In mental healing, we simply separate false thoughts from the true, consciously, And by allowing our faith and affirmation to sink down into the subconscious, we admit physical vigor and health into our lives. The principle of existence is the principle of thoughts becoming things. Since this is a law, we do not argue or struggle with it. Some well-meaning friend may ask you why you don't try walking upon the water, since you are so all-fired convinced of this mind stuff. All you can do is assure him that it is towards such a goal that you aspire. For we either walk on the water or drown in it. We either master life or defeat ourselves. Rely on the law. Mental treatment entails no personal responsibility other than for the idea and its affirmation. All else depends upon the principle of creation that underlies the universe, and this principle never fails. When you affirm your spiritual perfection, you are setting universal law in motion, which accepts your conception and the power of your affirmation and manifests it in the physical world. There is nothing superstitious or occult about this. The law we are dealing with is infallible. It is true reality, beside which all else pales to nothingness. Since disease is caused by a mental condition, before it can be healed, the mental condition must be surrendered. A man must first surrender himself to God, to universal subconscious mind. He must let go, give up the struggle, trust in the invisible roots of his being, so that God consciousness may engulf him and make him whole. You cannot successfully treat yourself or another person until you are willing to surrender your doubts and fears and hates and hurts. The nagging, gnawing, emotional hurts we bottle up inside ourselves are like time bombs laid within. They explode in tumors, cancers, high blood pressure, hardening of the arteries, diabetes, heart trouble, lung trouble. Literally riddle our bodies with poisonous thoughts that impregnate universal subconscious mind. We must surrender our fears and frustrations and guilts, lay aside our vanities and our little egos, place all our hurts on the shoulders of the Atlas of eternity. Then we shall be free, free to partake of the beauty and perfection and abundance of the universe. God is always right where we are, responding to us exactly as we conceive of Him. He is our infinite invisible dimension, of which our physical bodies are but a negligible projection. The power for physical perfection is running over inside of us. We only need surrender to it, accept it, trust ourselves completely to it, and health is ours. When you treat yourself or someone else for a physical ailment, remember that you are treating mind and not body. You are assuring yourself of mental and spiritual perfection. You are affirming it. You are projecting it into universal subconscious mind with complete faith and trust. When you treat someone else, you still deal with the same mind. You treat yourself to think perfection of the person you are treating. Do not try to change the other person's thinking by the power of your own thought. Simply treat yourself for the conception of Him. You move universal subconscious mind. Universal subconscious mind moves Him. Therefore, whether you are treating yourself or another, the treatment is always the same. Though, of course, in the latter case, you will substitute he or she, where you would normally use I. But always you are treating yourself, your own conception, and projecting it into universal mind. When you heal another, you must first be able to completely accept in your own mind his spiritual perfection. When you have done that, the healing will be effected. The mental cause of disease. A partial list of common physical ills follows, with the underlying mental cause for each, so that you may be guided more easily into directing your treatments at mental conditions rather than physical. Headache, Confusion is the predominant condition attendant upon headache. Most generally, this is brought about by the suppression of some emotion which revolves around the affections. When headache is attended by dizzy spells, it is a sign of a basic insecurity. Treat for peace, the clarity of the subconscious, the love that pervades the universe, and consciousness of immortal self. Fatigue. When enthusiasm and joy desert us, fatigue enmeshes us in an enervating grasp. Joy and enthusiasm are results of mental and spiritual expansion. We cease to expand when we place limits on our thinking and on our conceptions. Our goals disappear or seem unobtainable, and we accept defeat and its attendant feeling of lethargy and tiredness. Treat for awareness of life and movement and joy and expansion. There are no limitations on God, and God is expressing Himself through you. Indigestion. An intense sense of personal responsibility usually manifests itself in digestive upsets. People who work at high speeds and feel they must do everything by themselves often fall victim to excess stomach acidity and stomach ulcers. Their refusal to assimilate on the plane of mind a unity with the underlying self becomes symptomatic in the difficulty they have assimilating food. Treat for peace and perception of how God is the only doer. Treat for relaxation and trust in universal subconscious mind. Learn how to let go and leave it to God. There is perfect assimilation in perfect spirit. Constipation. Fear causes immobility, which brings inaction into life, freezing and constricting, often manifesting itself in constipation. Fear is the basic cause of greed, acquisitive tendencies, unwillingness to let go. Very often, fear comes from belief in limitation, in lack, in burden. It brings on excessive tensions, constricts and binds the muscles and the movements of the body. Fear is faith used negatively. Treat for positive thinking, assurance, confidence, and knowledge that you are one with God and God is right where you are, guiding you unerringly to your goals. Banish negative thoughts. Whatever you refuse to accept in your mind can never touch you in the physical world. Obesity. We become fat because we eat too much. And we eat too much because certain of our desires and longings are frustrated. Seeking solace, we find it in food, for the pleasure of taste and the comfort it gives us. Our frustrations are caused because we have taken onto ourselves false ideas of our personal unworthiness and no longer believe we can achieve our goals. We have lost confidence in our divine roots, and our energies are directed at sensual pleasures rather than at achievement and service. Treat for knowledge of the center of consciousness, wherein there is perfect order, perfect beauty, and perfect symmetry. Food is a symbol of love, and should be eaten with moderation, lest gluttony turn love to greed. God is love, and the perfect seed of love lies within you. Insomnia. When we sleep, we become immersed in universal subconscious mind. If we cannot sleep, it is because we are over-concerned with the material world, and our conscious minds have overridden the subconscious and refuse to let go. The physical world is simply a series of manifested results which have all proceeded from subconscious mind. We cannot change these results by fighting them, but only by dealing with them in mind where they originate. Thus, holding on to your cares and worries is the worst possible way to overcome them. Seek your center of consciousness before going to bed. Treat for peace and relaxation. Real truth is of the spirit and lies inward. Turn your eyes away from the world and look within. Intemperance. Alcohol provides a tortuous trap for those who seek escape from an unwanted belief. It is always some unwholesome or painful picture gnawing on the subconscious that turns a person to drink. He himself has created this image, and he might change it by creating another, but he lends reality to his self-made monster and frees it down the avenues of alcoholism or drug addiction or senseless pursuits of pleasure. Treat for the dissolution of guilt and personal responsibility. God is in you, and God is not guilty. Mistakes are for learning, and each day is a fresh start with a clean slate when you learn to forgive yourself. Colds and similar congestions. Mental conflicts and repressions attract congestions of the body such as the common cold. Such conflicts are usually first evidenced by depression of the spirits, a bleakness in outlook. Our creative nature demands that we either make a decision on a problem or put it out of mind. When we hold a problem in mind and are unable to come to a decision, we set up congestion in the forces that flow through us from the subconscious. This reduces our energy and activity, depresses the spirit, brings on bodily congestions and colds. Also, our racial conviction that colds are catching and caused by exposure to wind and low temperatures sets up creative impulses to manifest themselves when we encounter such situations. Treat for harmony and the knowledge of the perfection of universal subconscious mind. Each of your problems will be perfectly answered if you will only let go and leave the solution to your greater self. Treat for poise and assurance and calmness. There is no congestion in perfect spirit. False growths. A seed buried within grows in darkness, and so we carry our guilts around with us. They block us from knowledge of the great self, warp and distort our consciousness, manifest their falseness by false growths in and on the body. Treat for unity with universal subconscious mind. Let go of your guilts and sins and give them over to God. Paralysis. Ideas of restriction and limitation may manifest themselves in paralysis or the malfunctioning of the senses. There is no restriction and no inaction in the mind of God, which you may take unto yourself by meditation at the center of consciousness. Heart trouble and organic disturbances. The heart is the seat of purpose, and when purpose is centered in spirit and not the material world, the heart is rooted in perfection. Organic disturbances always come from a man being out of tune with his spiritual nature. Heart trouble and attendant disorders visit our materialist, those who seek their goals, purposes, and pleasures in the physical world. Treat by meditation on the birthless, deathless, ageless spirit from which man springs. Take unto yourself the mantle of God. Become one with him, and his purpose will energize your heart. There is only one mind, one spirit, one power, pervading the entire universe, and it is perfect. It is constantly attempting to express itself perfectly through each of us. Because we are newly arrived at the consciousness of our own little egos and have not yet taken unto ourselves the consciousness of the greater self, we see neither from where we have come nor where we are going, and the gigantic universe seems to threaten and frustrate us on all sides. Our limited vision causes us to create fear and hate and bitterness and apathy, which manifest imperfections in our bodies. All disease and distortion of the body may be healed by meditation at the center of consciousness, by knowledge of the love of God, by awareness and use of the unlimited power and perfection of the universal subconscious mind. Review. 1. Disease proceeds from mind and is the result of confusion. 2. Spirit is perfect, and body, which is the result of spirit, is perfect also, unless it is distorted by an idea of imperfect spirit. 3. Love is the eternal healer. 4. Body is idea implanted in universal subconscious mind. There are no imperfect bodies, only imperfect ideas. 5. From the wounds of the little ego arise the negative emotions which lay the foundation for disease. 6. Mental purpose is necessary to health, for such purpose coordinates the many interrelated functions of the body. 7. Exercise of itself will not produce health, which comes always from interest, desire, and aspiration in the mind and heart. 8. Overindulgence is a mark of imbalance of the emotions. 9. Pain is punishment for mistakes, is therefore a teacher, but the wise man learns by the mistakes of others. 10. Focus your attention on the world within and let moderation attend you in all things. 11. Mental healing does not treat the body, but treats the mind. 12. All disease is treated by affirming the spiritual perfection in which we are rooted. 13. Since it is beyond our understanding to mentally set a broken bone or heal a ruptured appendix, we sensibly call a surgeon. 14. Mental healing is the use of a principle that is law. It is never ourselves who do the healing. We simply call upon the law of thoughts becoming things by affirming the perfection of spirit. Body, manifesting the spirit, then becomes perfect also. 15. You heal another by treating your own mind for knowledge of his spiritual perfection. Thus you don't treat him. You treat yourself for your knowledge of him. 16. Behind every distortion of the body lies a distorted concept in mind, for from mind all things proceed. Contemplate perfect spirit. Health will follow. All barriers are those created by conscious mind, by limited thinking, by ingrained racial prejudice, by buried pain remembrances. Universal subconscious mind is unlimited in both scope and power. Peace and perfection await him who surrenders his ego to the immortal self that dwells within. Love is the great healer, for with love the foundations of the universe are perceived. Recommended reading: The Art of Creation by Edward Carpenter.